The night they pinned the badge on me, my own training sergeant leaned in close and said 6 words I never forgot. "Soft eyes get people buried, kid." He wasn't whispering. He wanted the whole room to hear it. 22 years later, I stood at a podium in front of that same city, 300 officers lined up behind me, cameras flashing in my face, and I raised my right hand to be sworn in as chief of police. But between those 2 nights, I lost my partner. I buried my best friend. I almost lost my badge for good. And there was one single week, where I came within an inch of throwing all of it away. Let me take you back to the beginning. Because none of this was supposed to happen to a guy like me. They gave me the flats. If you've ever lived in a city, every city has a version of it. Broken streetlights, boarded up windows. The kind of neighborhood where the sound of gunfire doesn't even turn heads anymore. On my first shift, my sergeant handed me a radio and said, "Don't get anyone killed. That's the whole speech." I was 23. I still believed the badge meant something. The other guys didn't like me from day one. I talked to people. I actually listened. When a scared kid was mouthing off on a corner, I didn't slam him against the wall. I asked him his name. To the veterans, that made me weak, soft, a liability. There's a moment I still see when I close my eyes. 8 months in, we ran a raid on a house the department said was a stash spot. Kicked the door at 3 in the morning. And there at the top of the stairs was a teenager, maybe 15, holding something dark in his hands, screaming, shaking. Everybody on that stairwell was screaming, "Shoot," and I froze. For half a second, I looked at his eyes instead of his hands. It was a phone. Just a phone. I lowered my weapon, but my hesitation let the real target, the guy we actually came for, slip out the back. He was gone. Vanished. The next morning, I was the guy who let him walk, the rookie with the soft eyes who couldn't do the job. They pulled me off major cases, put me on paperwork, parking complaints, lost dogs. Here's what nobody knew that night, including me. That raid was never supposed to succeed. Someone had tipped that target off before we ever kicked the door. I just didn't understand yet who. For 3 years, I ate the punishment. I showed up early. I stayed late. I closed the small cases nobody wanted. And slowly, quietly, I got good. Good enough to make detective. And detectives notice patterns. I started seeing something in the case files that didn't add up. Drug seizures, where the report said 40 kilos went into evidence. But only 28 came out the other side. Cash that never quite matched. Dealers who got arrested, then walked, then went right back to work like nothing happened. I mentioned it to the one man in that building I trusted completely. Danny. Danny had been my partner since the flats. He pulled me out of a burning car once. I owed him my life, literally. He was the guy who told me back when everyone else laughed, "Kid, your soft eyes are going to save somebody one day." I laid the numbers out in front of him at a diner at 2 in the morning. And Danny went quiet. Then, he said, "Leave it alone." Not "you're wrong." Not "prove it." Leave it alone. That was the first time in my life I felt the floor tilt underneath me. Because the only reason a good cop tells you to leave something alone is if he already knows what's under the rock. I couldn't leave it alone. You already knew that. Over the next 4 years, I climbed detective, then sergeant, then commander of a task force. And every rung I climbed, I pulled that thread a little harder. What I found wasn't a bad apple. It was an orchard. A ring inside my own department was skimming seized narcotics, reselling them through the same dealers they pretended to arrest and funneling the cash upward. It went past sergeants, past lieutenants. It went all the way to the 3rd floor, the command staff, the men who gave the speeches about honor. And the deeper I dug, the more it cost me. My tires got slashed. Then my brake lines. A confidential informant I'd never met suddenly swore in a signed statement that I'd taken a bribe. And Internal Affairs opened a file. On me. My wife found a bullet. One single bullet, taped to our front door. That's the night she stopped sleeping. I sat across from her at the kitchen table, and I couldn't promise her it would be okay. I couldn't promise her anything. All I could say was, if I stop now, I'll never be able to put this badge on again and mean it. She looked at me for a long time, and then she said, "Then don't stop. I want to tell you Danny came around. I want to tell you my best friend chose the right side. He didn't. 3 weeks before I could bring the whole thing down, Danny got into his car, and it never started right again. They called it an accident. I knew better. I carried his casket. And I made him a promise over that grave that I intend to keep for the rest of my life. By then, the command staff knew I was coming. So they moved first. They painted me as the dirty one, leaked the fake internal affairs file to the press. My face was on the news under words like corruption and under investigation. 20 years of showing up, of soft eyes and clean hands. And in 48 hours, they turned me into the villain of my own story. I got the call to turn in my badge and gun. I sat in my car in the parking garage with my whole career in a manila envelope on the passenger seat. And I'm not going to lie to you, I thought about quitting. I thought about walking away, taking my family somewhere far from all of it, and letting the whole rotten building collapse without me inside it. That was the closest I ever came to giving up. And that was the exact week the sky opened up. They named the hurricane after a woman. I'll never forget it. It was the largest storm to hit our city in 100 years. The seawall failed at 4 in the morning. Within hours, half the city was underwater. Power gone, roads gone, 911 lines melting down, people on rooftops, waving flashlights into the dark, waiting for someone, anyone, to come. And the department? The department had no head because that same week the FBI, working off a file I had quietly handed them before they could take my badge, arrested the entire command staff, the 3rd floor. In one morning, the men at the top of the police department were gone, in handcuffs, on the news. The city was drowning, and there was nobody left to lead. So I put the badge back on. Nobody ordered me to. Nobody promoted me. I just walked into the emergency operations center, and I started giving orders, and because somebody had to, and everyone in that room was looking for a person who wasn't afraid to be responsible for what happened next. I put officers in boats. I mapped the flooding block by block off memory. Because I'd walked those streets on foot for 20 years, back when they gave me the worst beat in the city. The flats. The neighborhood nobody else wanted. Turns out, knowing every street of the place they punished me with was the thing that let me save it. For 3 days I didn't sleep. We pulled families off rooftops, carried the elderly through chest-deep water, held the whole thing together with duct tape, radios, and people who decided to trust me. And soft eyes? Soft eyes are the ones that don't look away when it gets ugly. When the water went down, the city needed someone to rebuild the department from the ground up. Someone with clean hands. Someone the officers would actually follow. There was only one name left standing, mine. So I want you to picture it one more time. The rookie with the soft eyes. The one they pulled off major cases. The one they tried to frame, tried to break, tried to bury next to my best friend. Standing at a podium. 300 officers behind me. My wife in the front row. Finally sleeping again. Raising my right hand to be sworn in as chief of police. And somewhere in that crowd stood the sergeant who told me I'd never last 6 months. I found his eyes. And I nodded. Because he was right about one thing. If this story hit you the way it hit me, do me one favor. Tap that subscribe button and go watch the next video right now, because your climb to the top starts the moment this one ends.